Following Vauban's theory of layers of defense, the first thing an attacker to Fort Adams would run into is a completely separate fortification. This is the magnificent Southern Redoubt.
We are at the south end of the covertway. This redoubt would be the first level of defense for Fort Adams. This passageway that we're in right here is just a protective passage that runs into the redoubt. The covertway runs along the coast all the way up to the outworks of the main fort. You can see the masonry wall right along here. That provides protection for somebody who is trying to come back and take shelter in the redoubt if they are being attacked. You'll see that there's a banquette and a breast-height wall that would allow riflemen to defend in this direction. As we come around this corner, we come to the magnificent redoubt. It is the largest and the most complex redoubt in the third system, basically like a small fort in itself. It has very, very extensive defenses. If they're going to attack this redoubt, that's going to take a significant amount of manpower, and the fort then can raise the alarm to know that they are going to be under siege. This outer ditch, which totally encircles the redoubt, is a very significant barrier in itself. This is the very first level of defense, both for the fort and for the redoubt. You'll see it's a very deep ditch that requires scaling ladders to be able to come down and get into this ditch, and then scaling ladders to go up to the next level of outworks out here on my left. While you're doing that, you have howitzers that are firing down this way in the ditch. You have counter-fire galleries over here where you have musketry firing, and the whole time you're trying to get up this very, very steep wall. This makes a very strong defense by itself. The only real way into the redoubt is across the bridge and drawbridge that leads in. Normally, this bridge would come up here, and at this point, it would become a drawbridge. It's what we call a center pivot drawbridge, so it would pivot right around the entrance right here, and this portion of the bridge would come up, and if you were attacking, you'd be looking at the end of the bridge. You come further up here, you have loopholes firing across, and then also two flank howitzers that defend this whole area. So you're under fire from a number of different directions as you're coming into the sallyport. One of the things that you'll see here in this magnificent redoubt at Fort Adams is the arches above that are joining each other. You can see where these arches meet, and the mortar lines are all exactly the same. The bricks are tapered. If we go through this one arch and we go to these raised casemates that open onto embrasures, this is a rare feature. The casemate opens up onto these outworks. You can see the cannon positions up here. If the enemy were to come over and take those cannon positions, they'd be completely under fire from the howitzers that would be located here. There's a whole series of these casemates that surround the outside of the redoubt. They're firing onto the three sides where we have this middle outwork out here with cannon positions in that outwork. Magnificent construction. One of the interesting things about the way these casemates are constructed is that the outer wall here, what we call the scarp wall, is architecturally separate from the structure of the casemates. If something would happen where the enemy would bombard the outer wall and this would collapse, you can see there's no joining along this. It's a complete architectural separation all the way through. This wall could collapse to rubble and these casemates would remain intact. So it would still be a safe place to defend. If we look over in this direction, we can see the archwork again and how beautiful this archwork is and how the arches surround this center structure that has the double spiral staircase. This staircase is absolutely magnificent. Half of it has been broken away, so what we're looking at are really the remains of the staircase, but it allows you to see very clearly how the two stairways spiraled over the top of each other going up. They were entered from either side, and then you would spiral up these staircases. The purpose of having the two staircases in double spiral is quite obviously that you could get twice as many people up to the ramparts in the same length of time. This is a magnificent structure, the only one in a fort in the United States. We are inside the redoubt right now, and there is a postern on this side that leads out to the outworks. So you can see this arched passageway. We come up here, and there is what used to be a drawbridge here. You can see the mechanism here and some of these mechanisms for this drawbridge. We believe this may be original on this half of it, but it would have extended out and rotated this way to close this passageway off to prevent somebody from coming in from the inner ditch. Also in the inner ditch here, you can see loopholes that are facing this way for anybody either in the ditch or trying to get into this postern. Off to the right-hand side of us is the Caponier that provides rifle fire also down the ditch. This is the passageway that leads from the demi-bastion to the outer defenses of the redoubt. We are now entering the Caponier. The Caponier has multiple functions. It is a passageway. It closes the inner ditch and separates it from the outer ditch. So on this side we have loopholes that can defend the inner ditch. On this side we have loopholes that can defend the outer ditch. The primary purpose though is as a passageway. As we're coming down here, you can see this leads us to the tunnel that connects to the counterscarp gallery on the other side. If the outer ditch falls, it gives them a passageway to come back. But instead of coming all the way back to the redoubt itself, they can turn here and come down this counterfire gallery. A counterfire gallery is the same as a counterscarp gallery, but it's not in the scarp. This area that we're looking at is earthen on top. It has some rifle positions on top, but it separates the inner ditch and the outer ditch through the main land-facing areas of the redoubt. This is a tunnel leading from the redoubt here to the outermost outwork here, which is a counterscarp gallery. A scarp is the wall of the fort. The counterscarp is the wall opposite that. And we're here in this counterscarp gallery. Above us is the glacis, that clear sloped area that an enemy is going to come up when they're attacking the fort. And while they're doing that, they're being shot at from these people on the ramparts of the redoubt itself. And when they get into the ditch, they get a nasty surprise. These openings that you see in the wall are called loopholes. This is where the defenders would be firing out. They'd have their musket, they'd be firing out through this loophole. And you'll notice right above this is an opening. As they fire their musket, the smoke that comes off of that is nice and hot. It goes straight up and is sucked out this opening up here. Along here you'll see a number of these loopholes. This is called a rifle gallery. And in between the loopholes, you'll see these big sections of wall. After they've fired out here, they can step back, reload their musket in complete safety while someone else is firing out. They can then step around to the loophole and fire when they're ready and come back. So you can have a continuous fire coming out here from a number of different people. And the ones who are reloading are completely safe.